Yo, this is the Fight Block. Got a new style. If you haven't seen my previous videos, got a Rock Band microphone to improve the audio a little bit. Using the webcam now and just rambling, giving my thoughts and my predictions. In this video, UFC 136 live this Saturday. That's October the 8th. Live on pay-per-view. It's the trilogy fight. The long-anticipated rematch between Maynard and Frankie Edgar. Before I get started, I just want to give a quick shout out to MMAHQ.com. The guys hooked me up with some two sweet shirts. One of them I'm wearing right now. It's a Takeya Mitsugaki shirt. Pretty badass. Back's got some samurai swords, and I'm digging it. And another was a pretty sweet warrior shirt. So it was cool of them to hook me up. And yeah, so giving them a plug. Check them out. They got a lot of good MMA merchandise, equipment, and then they also got a section for news and information. So check it out, MMAHQ.com. All right, UFC 136. This card is stacked. Man, they've had MMA events every week for the past month. I'm trying to keep up, but I wanted to come on today and give early predictions, thinking maybe the pay-per-view was next weekend. Nope, it's this Saturday. So, get them up at least a week before, and not the day before, which I've been doing lately. So, UFC 136 this Saturday. The card's stacked, like I said. There's a lot of fights I'm really looking forward to. I'm going to give predictions for the two prelim fights on Spike TV and all 5 main card bouts. There's 2 title fights, which hasn't happened in a while. So, big card. I'm stoked. I'm really looking forward to it. Let's get started. First fight on the Spike TV prelims. Anthony Pettis takes on Jeremy Stephens. And Pettis is coming off of that disappointing loss to Clay Guida. Rather than wait around for the winner of the Frankie Edgar, Maynard fight, he chose to fight Clay Guida and lost a hard-fought decision. Guida just out-wrestled him. Pettis looked dangerous off of his back, had several close triangles, but Guida was just able to rip out of it. But I'm a huge fan of Anthony Pettis. The Showtime kick against Ben Henderson was jaw-dropping, one of the craziest things I've ever seen, and MMA. But overall, I'm just a huge Pettis fan. But Jeremy Stephens, man, he looked solid. And other than a loss to Melvin Gillard, the guy's been on a roll. He's won 4 of his last 5 fights, which included wins over Marcus Davis, Sam Stout, 2 solid guys in the lightweight division, and he's finishing people. And I think this fight's just going to be a stand-up brawl. Stephens likes to stand and bang. Pettis, we all know how great of a striker he is. And so this is a tough fight for me to call, I'm rooting for Pettis, but my gut kind of says Stephens. This is just going to be an awesome fight. It's free. Check it out on Spike. But if I have to give a prediction, I'm going with Anthony Pettis to pull out a decision. I think he's just going to be able to mix it up while the judges with his striking style. If you haven't seen Pettis fight, the guy is insane. The stuff he throws, the kicks, the spinning kicks, who knows what he's going to throw. The guy is just one of those video game type fighters. And you got to check him out. Spike TV, free fight. So Pettis by decision, but, Stephens has been looking legit. So it's going to be a good fight. Moving on to Damian Maia, taking on Jorge Santiago. Maia coming off a decision loss to the Filipino assassin, Mark Munoz. There we go. It's pulling a blank. And Jorge Santiago coming off of that TKO knockout, maybe. I can't remember, but TKO loss to Brian Stann. Jorge Santiago has fought a lot in Japan. Both guys have their BJJ jiu-jitsu backgrounds, and both are very accomplished in jiu-jitsu. And which I see canceling out in this fight. Maia really hasn't been able to utilize his jiu-jitsu. He came into the UFC, was submitting people like crazy, the submission magician, and then now he's just resorted to standing and working on his striking, and he's just not that great. He came out against Munoz, guns blazing in the first round, put a lot of pressure on Munoz in that fight, looked really good, but then either gassed or just took a beating, and Munoz was able to come back and win the last 2 rounds. And, not that impressed by Maia's striking, doesn't really have the power to finish anyone. I think most of his fights can take a place on the feet, where I give Jorge Santiago a slight advantage, and I think Santiago, Maia's tough to finish, other than that one loss to Marquardt where he went for that flying knee and just got brutally knocked out. He's got a fairly good chin, and I think it's going to be tested, and I'm just going to go out on a limb and say Jorge Santiago defeats Demian Maia by TKO. I wouldn't be surprised if it's something vicious and awesome. So, Jorge Santiago, TKO over Demian Maia in the second round. Moving on to the pay-per-view card. Starting off with Leonard Garcia against Nam Phan. This is a rematch from their highly, highly controversial fight a couple months back, where Garcia won a split decision, I believe, but no. Nam Phan, in my opinion, won. Garcia was, like all fights, was just throwing haymaker bombs, hoping one would land. And he just looked like a crazy man out there. Nam Phan, I don't really remember the fight all that well. It was a brawl, but I just remember thinking Nam Phan got screwed, along with many, many, many fans. But we get the rematch finally. Garcia, he's coming off of a loss to, I can't remember. Korean Zombie, Chan Sung Jung. They had their rematch, and Garcia lost, by the twister. At 6 submission by the Korean Zombie. So Garcia coming off a loss. Nam Phan, he's also coming off a loss against Mike Brown. Mike Brown beat Nam Phan by decision. I'm going to go with Nam Phan in this fight. I think he's going to fight smarter than Garcia. And, if he can get Garcia on his back, there's not much Garcia does off the ground. So, I just think Nam Phan has more ways to win this fight. And even though Garcia throws haymaker bombs like no other, he really doesn't seem to pack much power. So, even when they do connect, he doesn't really drop anybody. But I'm taking Nam Phan by... I'll go with Nam Phan by TKO. I think he'll get him on the ground, put on the pressure, and finish Garcia. Moving on to the next fight. A little bit surprised by this matchup. Melvin Guillard is taking on Joe Lozon. Guillard, I believe Dana White came out and said Guillard is right now the clear-cut number 1 contender. If you stack up who's in contention, really it comes down to Guida, Henderson, and Guillard. I believe Guida and Henderson will be fighting on the Fox card coming up. Joe Lozon, Joe Lozon, very inconsistent fighter. He comes out at times and just looks incredible. He's got sick ground game, and he's fast, but he's just very, very inconsistent. He's coming off a sweet Kimura victory over Kurt Warburton. That was a first-round submission, but he was coming off a loss previous to that to George Sotiropoulos, lost by submission to George Sotiropoulos. So, Lozon, inconsistent. Melvin Guillard, man, he's been on a roll lately. I agree with Dana White. I think Guillard's really flown under the radar and should definitely be considered the number 1 contender. He's won his last 5 fights in a row, including a knockout victory over Shane Roller in his last fight. That was sick. He finished Evan Dunham, who had all that hype behind him, and finished Dunham in the first round. He finished 3 of those 5 fights. He's finished, and he's just looked really, really impressive. So, if Guillard beats Lozon, I can definitely see him getting the next shot. Just a side note, I read today that it looks like Gilbert Melendez is coming over from Strikeforce as soon as possible. and could potentially be thrown into a title fight. So, there's a lot of contenders in the lightweight division. I hate when I see fights like fighters like Jim Miller go 7 in a row, 8 in a row. I think once you get up there, man, you deserve a shot if you can win that many fights in a row in the UFC. And I guess it's just a matter of matching up and who you beat in terms of rank. But, if Gillard wins, that's going to be 6 in a row. I think the way he's won his fights, he definitely would deserve a shot. But Gilbert Melendez coming in, Guida, Henderson, man, there's just a lot of contenders right now. And I mean, Gillard, if he does win, could potentially fight the winner of Henderson, Guida, but I just think that's eliminating a lot of good potential title fights. I mean, I'd love to see Henderson fight for the UFC title. Love to see Clay Guida fight for the title. Would love to see Melvin Gillard fight for the title. Love to see Gilbert Melendez fight for the title. And, that's a lot of matchups. I mean, contendership fights are good. I want to see some title fights with these guys. So, we'll see. I have no idea how the lightweight division will unfold. I'm kind of rambling right now, but my prediction, I think Melvin Gillard will finish Joe Lozon by TKO. I think Melvin Gillard's wrestling, he'll be able to keep this fight standing, and Gillard would definitely be the faster and more technical striker. I think he'll catch Lozon and finish Lozon in the first round. I've just been really impressed by Gillard. I think if he wins this fight convincingly, he should be right there in contention. Maybe, if they can't fit in Melendez for a title fight, give Gilbert Melendez Melvin Gillard. I think that would be a great fight. Moving on to the Chael Sonnen Brian Stann fight. Probably one of my more anticipated fights on this card. I'm a huge Brian Stann fan. Also a Chael Sonnen fan. I was at UFC 117. Saw it live, Sonnen versus Silva. It was badass. And, Sonnen's coming off that long suspension for the testosterone and whatever the hell went down. And he's finally back in the UFC, and he's definitely one of the top middleweights in the world. Brian Stann recently dropped down to middleweight. Since doing so, he's 3-0, and he's finished all 3 of his fights. First by submission, and his last 2 by TKO stoppage over Chris Lieben and Jorge Santiago. So Brian Stann's looked really good since dropping down. Just a quick plug and shout out to Brian Stann. I recently read his book, Heart for the Fight. I did another little video just kind of giving a review of it, but highly recommend his book. It was awesome. The guy is just a professional in every manner. He's a war hero, and all around, just mad respect to Brian Stann. I'm pulling for him in this fight, huge. I mean, but the only way I really see him winning this fight is if he catches Sonnen. I mean, he's not going to out-wrestle Sonnen, and, I mean, Sonnen's got Olympic-caliber wrestling. I just see Sonnen grinding out a decision and taking Stann down, and much like the Marquardt fight, just laying on top, grounding and pounding, and, I mean, Stann not known for really much ground or a danger. He's not really known for a dangerous ground game, especially off of his back. So Sonnen, if he can get this fight to the ground, pretty much should be able to grind out a decision. I definitely think this fight is deserving of a number one contendership fight. A lot of people were calling for the Sonnen Silva rematch immediately after that fight. And with what happened to Sonnen, they had to change things up. But Sonnen, definitely a win would put him right back into a contention. And Brian Stann, if he wins, that would be a huge victory over Sonnen. That'd be 4 in a row since dropping down to the middleweight division. And I personally would love to see a Silva-Brian Stann fight. Brian Stann, no joke on the feet. He's got finishing power, and he's just a brawler, and he will take it to Silva. I don't think he's going to be one of those guys that'll respect the champion too much and back away. And then I hate fighters that give champions too much respect. And I don't think Brian Stann would do that to Silva. I think he'd be in his face, throwing bombs, and I think it would make for a good fight. So either way, I'm looking forward to hopefully the winner of this fight getting a shot at Silva. I think it'd be a great matchup. either Stann or Sonnen. But I got to go with Sonnen by decision. Sonnen's got a solid chin. He's tough to finish. So even if Stann does bring his A game and land some shots, he's got to do a lot to take out Chael Sonnen. So looking forward to this fight. Really pulling for Stann, but Sonnen by decision. Moving on to the co-main event. We get 2 title fights on this card. Jose Aldo defends his featherweight title against Kenny Florian. This will be Kenny Florian's second fight since dropping down to the featherweight division. Defeated Diego Nunes, either way, by decision in his last fight. I wasn't all that impressed by Florian in his featherweight debut. He definitely outsized Nunes by a lot and seemed to gas a little bit. I don't know. He didn't come out all that aggressive. And, he fought well. It was a good, hard-fought fight, but I was hoping Kenny would come down and finish Nunes and really make a statement going into this fight with Aldo, but decision Nunes. Jose Aldo coming off of that hard-fought fight with Mark Hominick, looked really good early in the fight and really was chopping away at Hominick's legs. Gave Hominick a huge hematoma on his head that was just alien-like and pretty much put on a beating, but Hominick turned on the jets late in the fight, was able to take Aldo down, put Aldo on his back. I don't know if Aldo was hurt or just gassed, but Aldo off his back, he wasn't really doing much, and he was taking a lot of shots there at the end when Hominick was really going all out. So I don't know if that's a weakness or what, but put Aldo on his back, and I don't know what happens. We haven't seen it much, but Hominick, that seemed to be a very advantageous spot. I don't know if I said that right, but for Aldo to be in, or for Hominick to be in. So, that being said, Kenny Florian's going to come in, be a bigger fighter, and, Kenny's weakness seems to be in every one of his title shots. This will be his 3rd UFC title shot. Can a 3rd time be a charm for Kenny? I don't know, but every time he seems to fight, he's one of those guys that gives the champion too much respect. He comes in with some crazy game plan. His brother's always yelling him at the corner to do stuff, and he doesn't. And oh man, you can hear the passion in the corner, and Kenny just wants the title so bad. And I would like to see Kenny win, but he just doesn't bring it. And I believe Dana White called him a choke in his last fight. And because Kenny has that quote where he likes to finish fights, but he hasn't been recently. So he definitely has the skill sets, jiu-jitsu, striking to take it to his opponent. But when he doesn't fight aggressive, he doesn't look good. And Jose Aldo, he's going to come out, he's going to chop away at Kenny's legs. He's going to take it to Kenny early. And you know what? I think if Kenny can weather the storm, get out of the first 2 rounds with Aldo, I think Kenny has a good chance of winning this fight. I think what's going to be key in this fight is if Kenny works on his wrestling and takes this fight to the ground and puts Aldo on his back, I think he'll be able to avoid Aldo's submissions and put a beating on Aldo on the ground. I think that's the way you got to beat Jose Aldo. Florian's got the submission defense to defend against it, and Aldo definitely looked like he was gassing in his fight against Hominick. He's not used to going late in fights. He's always finishing his opponents early, and I'm going to go with the upset on this pick. As much as I think Jose Aldo is a pound-for-pound top fighter, probably 3rd behind Silva and GSP, I'm just going with the upset pick. I think Kenny's going to do enough to survive, and come 3rd round, I think Florian's going to be able to turn it on. If he takes Aldo to the ground, which I think would be the smartest thing to do, and not stand with him, I think Florian could have a huge advantage. I just questioned Florian's wrestling in this. I don't know really how great his takedown offense is. So we'll see, but I'm taking Kenny Florian to grind out a decision over Jose Aldo. Moving on to the main event, the long-anticipated Frankie Edgar versus Gray Maynard matchup. If you haven't seen their last fight, it's one of the best fights this year, if not the best, in my opinion. Crazy comeback from Frankie Edgar. Just took a beating in the first round, thought he was done, and then was able to just make a miraculous comeback and fight ended up in a draw. I believe Gray Maynard won the first round 10-8, and then Frankie Edgar was able to come back from that and still grind out a draw. And, you know, I think that was the right call. It was a very, very close fight. And, you know, I thought Maynard being much larger, lightweight, both fighters accomplished in wrestling. Maynard would take Frankie Edgar down. Frankie Edgar, he's a smaller lightweight, be able to take Frankie Edgar down and grind out a decision that way. Well, the last two fights, including their first one, have mostly taken place on the feet. So their wrestling, for the most part, is canceled out. I mean, Maynard has taken Edgar down, but Edgar's also taken Maynard down, including a huge slam in their last fight. So, really, the wrestling department's really even. Maynard definitely packs more of the power punch, and he's the bully. That's his nickname. He lives up to it. He really bullies his opponents. Frankie Edgar, since coming back off of his knee injury, defeated Sean Shirk in a huge upset, has just looked like a completely different fighter. He's faster. He's got very much of the Dominic Cruz style, where they're always moving, constantly moving. He's got great head movement, and you know, this is a tough fight to call. My gut says Gray Maynard bullies Frankie Edgar into a decision and takes the title from Frankie. But you know, I've counted Frankie out in every single fight since his first fight with BJ, and he's proved me wrong every time. I hate going against Frankie, and I'm going with Gray Maynard in this one. I think Gray will do enough. I think this is going to go... Man, did I call a decision in the last title fight? This is going to be a long pay-per-view if I keep calling decisions. I think Gray Maynard and Frankie goes to the judges, and I think Gray Maynard does enough to win 3 rounds. And, man, there's too many tough fights to call on this card, but I'm taking Gray Maynard to win this by decision. All right, I've been rambling for a while. If you've listened the whole time, thank you. I had a lot to say. This is just, I think, an awesome card. This is the Fight Block. Once again, shout out to MMA HQ for some sweet shirts. I'll wear their other shirt in the next video. Subscribe. I'm trying to build the fan base a little bit. Been really consistent with my videos, so if you're a fan of MMA and you like to just talk and hear other fans talk about the sport, subscribe. Follow on Twitter. You can follow at @fight_block. Check out the blog. I post a bunch of stuff there, MMA related. So check out the blog, www.fightblock.blogspot.com. Feel free to drop your predictions, comments, and I think that's all I got to say for UFC 136. Check it out this Saturday. Awesome card. This is the Fight Block again. Thanks for listening. Peace.